Okay, in this video lesson, what we're going to do is take a look at how we can create the Evil Monkeys level editor. Finally, a small break away from the game, just for a little while, where we get to design a new application, and this new application is going to help us take the Evil Monkeys game to a whole new place.
Yeah, it's a whole new level.
A whole new level, hey, touche. But now, as opposed to having to, play randomly generated level after level,
right,
we're going to be able to really construct a game in a sense, because we'll be able to say, let's make a package. And within this package, it's going to have X number of levels. And we get to determine how many levels we're going to have.
Yep.
And we get a place where the walls are going to be. We're going to be able to control where the player is going to spawn into that level at. We're going to be able to control where the monsters are going to spawn, or the evil monkeys, where they're going to spawn in at. And what's really nice is, as we progress through the next several videos, we'll also be able to come back in at a later point in time and reload the level packages that we've created and edit them, edit each of the levels.
Which will be a very rewarding experience.
Yes, I mean, but that's very cool being able to do that. Yes, very much so. So before we really start talking about all the objectives, let's go ahead and open up a finished level editor, just to kind of remind everybody what it looks like. Okay, so here it is. And in this lesson, we're setting out to create this user interface right here. And just kind of set up for the functionality, like just set up the event table and things like that.
Right.
And then later on, we'll start coding in functionality, like starting in the next lesson.
Yep.
But we've got, a menu across the top, file, with things like create a new package and a new level. And again, you guys need to understand the difference. A package is going to be a container of levels. It's a file that contains numerous levels. And when you create a new level, that is a new level that's inside the package. Okay? Now, load and save, those guys are going to allow us to load a package in
and save a package.
And save a package out. About is just going to say, we all love 3DBuzz for doing videos like this, or something like that. And finally, exit will, well, that one's kind of complicated, and we're still thinking about how we want it to work.
Right, we'll address that in a later VTM.
Exactly, but it'll probably simply exit the level editor. So from there, let's go ahead and move on down. We've got a toolbar. So this is the first time we'll be creating a toolbar, which is pretty cool. And with this, you can see we can create walls, we can create a player spawn, we can create evil monkeys, we can erase walls,
or any
items, any item, and then we can go back and forth between levels. And this this is a good point. We can go ahead and come in here and say File, New Package, and we're going to go ahead and control how many columns and rows that we have, and boom, there it is. And by default on our toolbar, the Walls button is pushed in, so we can just come in here, click, and drag, and drag, and drag, and drag, and drag, and there's a secret room back over here.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, and little wee hallway to get into it.
Getting carried away.
Yes, there we go. But as you can see, the idea, like such, then I can come over and say we're going to spawn over here, so we have absolutely no clue where this secret room is, which contains a secret monster. So, and maybe another monster right there. And so the idea is to be able to walk through the next series of lessons and set it up to where we can do stuff like this.
Right.
Now, at this point, of course, there is only one level. So as we showed in the introduction way back, we can always say new level. And we'll go ahead and type in again columns and rows. And then with this one right here, maybe this one's going to be, whoa, I was just kidding. Just to show you the erase button, see, it does indeed work.
Very nice.
Thank you, thank you. So we'll come back over here and do something very, I don't know.
Artistic.
Artistic. Like
that looks like a skull.
That's right. It was designed that way. With a player start, bink, and, of course, a monster, like such. So now we can see that on our toolbar up here, our little arrows have come to life, allowing us to step back in time to this level, or forward to this. So just giving you, this is kind of like an introduction to the level editor VTM portion of this entire series here. So being able to come in here, and at any point, of course, we can now test out what the game's going to play like. So, run for your life, and run.
That's too hard.
Died once. You can't handle my levels, can you?
No,
you can't handle it. You only got one life. Oh, that's okay. That's all right, because we're about to start coding anyway, so not everything's in place. But anyways, you get the idea of what it is that we're going to create. And let's not forget, once we get outside of our window canvas area, what we're going to be drawing on, come all the way down here to the bottom, one last element that we have for the user interface is, of course, going to be our status bar. Okay, which is divided up, as you can see, into 3 different parts. And this will become important, as Joel will explain in just a minute. So that's the level editor. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that out. And let's go ahead and come over here to context real quick. And Joel, let's go ahead and talk about the objective.
All right. So the first thing we want to do is import the resource files for the toolbar, as it says right there. So that's basically the little icons that are at the top. We're going to use the exact same tiles, if you will, that we used in the Evil Monkeys game, but they need to be 16 by 16.
As opposed to 32?
Yeah, 32. Exactly. So we're going to have to scale those down, but we're going to use the exact same resource file as well, so that when we change one resource file, it'll reflect the changes both in the Evil Monkeys game itself and in the toolbar.
Right.
Or in the level editor.
Exactly.
And from there, we're going to create the controls that populate the user interface. That'll include, as Buzz was saying before, the menu bar, the toolbar, the window canvas, which will contain the actual level.
Right.
And finally, the status bar, which...
So you can notice we're drawing these from top to bottom.
Right. And finally, the status bar, which will show things like the level size, which level you're currently looking at, and that kind of thing. And finally, we'll set up the event table and kind of lay the groundwork as we did in the first Evil Monkeys game.
No functionality.
No functionality, just empty functions, so that in later lessons we'll just easily be able to put in functionality.
That's right, and the event table is in place.
Exactly.
Very cool. Now, if we go ahead and switch over to .NET real quick, what we've got in here is just
a very complex-looking thing.
A basic window. For those of you that watched the previous VTM where we talked about WX widgets and taught how to create your own windows, this is it. This is just a very simple window.
That's right.
Same thing that's going on over here. I mean, we've just got, in regards to source files, we've just got app frame and level editor. So level editor as opposed to the Evil Monkeys.
Yeah. And otherwise it looks pretty much the same. We have the level editor. Pretty much the only change here is that we use level editor for Evil Monkeys as the caption.
Instead of Hello World.
Exactly. And otherwise, it's pretty much exactly the same. We do, in fact, have an event table that's empty.
It's empty. Yeah.
So just remember that. So let's go ahead and create the resource files.
Okay, let's, resource files first.
All right, so let's add an existing item to our resource files directory here. And what do we want? Well, let me just click this for a second, give it a second to load.
Think. It's coming.
Dun, dun, dun.
Don't let it mislead you. There we
okay,
go.
So we're inside of Lesson 8 right here. Let's go into the Evil Monkeys directory and load this resource file here. So if we load this is the same one that our Evil Monkeys game is using, right? So if we load this and just look at what's available to us, you can see that these are, in fact, the ones that we've been using. Now, for this one, we're going to need some toolbar elements as well. So let's right-click to here and say Add Resource and Import, just as we did with this before. And let's go to our data directory here. And we have 5 new ones here. We have the arrow left, which is the guy.
Left and right arrows.
And then we have colors, which is going to be used a toolbar. When you create a toolbar, you need this just so that it knows what colors to use for the toolbar itself. And we have an eraser, which obviously is eraser, and finally the execute.
Yeah, the test map.
Exactly. So let's select these 5. Just press open. Give it a second. So we have all 5 of these bitmaps loaded. Let's go ahead and open the properties window as we did before.
Time to give some new names.
And so the first one, we're going to call this one arrow left.
Of course, again, in quotes in all caps.
And the second one's going to be arrow right. And this one's going to be something a little bit special. This one's going to be, in quotes, WX
bitmap
underscore STD colors.
Colors.
And this is what I was telling you about. This is going to be used by WX Widgets when it creates the toolbar to decide which standard colors it's going to be using. So in this one right here, this one's clearly our eraser. So in quotation marks, eraser. Eraser. I was just kidding. So right here, finally we're going to have our execute. So let's just execute. So there we have it. Everything is set up the way we want it. Now, let's kind of just exit all of these because we don't want them all open. Okay. We'll exit the properties window as well. Now, if we go over into the header file, let's go ahead and define the different menu IDs that we'll be needing to use.
Time for basically like an ID list.
Right, like in a new. Well,
it is
in a new.
So menu IDs.
Yeah. And we're also going to create another enum for the toolbar IDs, so we'll do that in just a second. So we have our ID new package. And we'll just equate that to 400, because that's my number. And we'll also have our, ED?
Well, ed's okay, but ID looks better.
Yeah, that's very true.
ID load.
ID save.
About.
ID about.
And quit. You type too slow.
Thank you, thank you. We're also going to create the enum, as we were saying, for the toolbar
IDs.
button. So, toolbar IDs. And we're going to need these toolbar IDs just for when we decide which one is actually selected when we paint.
Right.
So let's go ahead and create our toolbar wall, and we'll equate this to 500. That's a cool number too. So we have our player, we have our enemy,
we have our erase, TLB erase. We have previous level.
So previous underscore level.
And then next level.
So next level.
And finally, test level.
Right, which is the guy on the very right.
That's right.
So let's just do our test level. So that's good. Now let's go ahead and create some private variables that we're going to need.
All right.
Kind of as we did before, we're going to have a WX window, which is going to be the main draw area. So we'll just call this the game window. And of course, it needs to be a pointer to a game window.
We need a toolbar,
so let's create a toolbar with a capital B. And go ahead and create a pointer to that. And finally, a WX menu, which is going to be just menu file.
Right.
So with that created, let's go over into our app frame. And since you guys have done this quite a bit before, there's no need in kind of dragging it out. Let's just go ahead and do this.
Let's make some stuff.
That's right. So let's start out with our menu bar. And WX menu bar equals new
WX menu bar. We've seen this 106 times.
Yes, if you don't know by now, well, that's bad.
Now let's go ahead and create the menu.
Now let's go ahead and start appending stuff to the menu file. So lots and lots of typing.
Let me just walk you through all these.
Because we're cool like that.
That's right. So new package, and of course we'll say something like new package, and we can put the ampersand in front of the P just so that we have a little shortcut.
Let's copy and paste.
Lots of pasting, yes. So the next one's just going to be new level.
And this one's going to be...
Next one's going to be load.
Load. And we'll put the ampersand on the D.
Oh, come on. Put it on the N up above.
Okay, my bad.
There you go. Yay. Yay.
Okay, much better.
Okay. And the next one, of course, will be save.
Okay.
Okay, then we're going to do a boot.
A boot. Out and a boot.
And the next one, final one, will be we're going to exit or quit or however. Yeah, I think you did ID quit, was it, or was it exit?
Let's look up.
Yeah.
ID quit.
ID quit. So quit, but we'll have it say exit.
Oh, we can change this to exit.
We sure could.
And then we'll just change this to exit just to be consistent, and we'll put it on the X because X is a exit kind of number. Yes, that's right. Also add some separators between these, so let's go ahead and
group the menu options together that just make most sense.
Right. So append separator. And between load and save, after load and save, that is, and between about and exit.
Okay.
So we also want to append this menu bar or this menu file to our menu bar.
Menu bar, right?
So let's do our menu bar.
Oh, some append action, and menu file, and the file.
Whatever that may be. Okay, so there.
Nice.
And then we have to actually associate it to it.
Right.
So set menu bar. Done.
Excellent.
So that's that. Now what we're going to do is create the game window. So we already have in the header file this defined. So let's go ahead and create it. So we have our game window is equal to a new WX window. The parent's going to be this, and we'll just pass it a -1 for the ID. And everything else is just pretty much default since it's the only window it's going to cover the entire area.
Right.
So that's good. Now let's go ahead and create the status bar. So we're kind of creating this vertically from top to bottom.
Bottom.
You stole my words again.
3.
So we
Remember how a few minutes ago when we had the level editor up, I pointed out that the status bar had 3 sections. Like here we've got a section, 2 sections, 3 sections, 4 and 5.
Right.
In this case, we want 3, so we just simply say 3.
So that's the only argument we need to pass it. And we'll set the status text, which is the status bar text, to something like create a new package to begin creating levels. ... Isn't that snazzy?
Yes.
So now, with that set, let's go ahead and compile this, make sure this works, and then we'll move on to the toolbar.
Okay.
That's the only thing that has kept us from actually creating it top-down.
Right.
So give it a second. And it's also good to notice, I don't think we pointed this out, we're not using precompiled headers for this, just because it's a small
no real
pocket.
Reason to.
Right. So as you can see, we have a file menu.
Ooh.
Very nice. And we have 3 little things on the bottom that say create a new package to begin creating levels, yada yada, and 2 other ones here as well. So that's good. Let's go ahead and that won't work, but let's go ahead and exit the level editor, and let's start creating our actual toolbar. So let's say toolbar equals, because remember in our app frame we declared this toolbar right here. So toolbar equals create toolbar,
and it's a WXTB_flat.
Well, which simply says we want it to be the flat style.
That's right.
Like right here, when you move your mouse over it, it kind of highlights it. So from that, what we're going to need to do is create the images that are going to be used to create the different toolbar items. And of course, all of these here that we're going to use are 32 by 32, so we need to stretch them down so they're 16 by 16.
Right.
So the first one we're going to create is the WX image for the wall image. And remember, we can use our WX bitmap macro here. And just the name, as you can see here, we want wall tile. And we're just going to do this all in line, convert to image, which returns to us an image, right? And we're going to call the scale function. And let's define a constant, if you will, that specifies how big the toolbar needs to be. Yeah. Right. So let's go up to here and just say define toolbar underscore size, and we'll specify that to 16. So let's just copy this guy here and go down. We want to scale it to 16 by 16. So we also want to make sure this wall image does not have a mask set, just in case there are whites inside of the, we don't want it to use the mask. So we'll say wall image dot set mask, and we'll set that to false. And WX bitmap wall bitmap equals WX bitmap, just converting it to a wall bitmap from the wall image to a bitmap.
From the image to a bitmap.
Yeah, thank you.
You can do it, Joel.
Yes, I know. So now let's create our image. We'll be using these bitmaps in a second so that we can copy it over to our toolbar. So we have our player image equals WX bitmap. Actually, let's go ahead and copy this.
I was about to say, you should do a little copying.
So this one's going to be our player tile, and we'll just call this guy player image.
Of course, in this one here, we do want to go ahead and take into account the mask, so we need to go ahead and set the mask color.
Right. So let's set the mask color
to white. We'll just stick with the 255 all the way across the board.
And then let's convert this into a bitmap. Bitmap.
You can do it.
Yeah. So we have our player bitmap equals WX bitmap.
And really just copy that and...
Yeah. Right there.
Yeah.
So we're going to copy this entire thing.
Right.
For our enemy image. So we have our enemy image. This one's going to be enemy tile. And this is going to be enemy image. And finally, enemy bitmap. So tedious.
Very good.
So from there we have just a few more to do. We have our bitmap for our erase item. So let's just copy this guy. For our eraser, excuse me. So we'll just call this the eraser. I keep spelling it erasor. Don't mean to. Eraser bitmap, or image, excuse me, equals WX bitmap. And this one's going to be eraser. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, that looks right.
Okay.
So we convert that to an image, and we're scaling it down to... Although in this case, the eraser image is already scaled down. This is just in case the artist who designs the toolbar images decides, well, I want to change it to a bigger image. Well, this will scale it down for them automatically. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. So we have our WX bitmap, and this is going to be our left bitmap. We're going to just assume that these are used. These are already the correct size. We're kind of just showing you the different ways to do this. So we convert this from a WX bitmap.
I'm just surprised with the eraser image you didn't want to go ahead and put that in a WX bitmap, since it's being held right now in a WX image.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good idea. We might as well just go ahead and do that.
Just knock it all out at once.
Right.
Sorry, that's the only reason I was just
kind of
hesitant a second ago. It's like, oh, okay, a little interesting.
Yeah. What are you doing? So we have our arrow left, and then we're going to copy this line, and whoa, not there. We have our arrow right here.
Right.
And our arrow right.bitmap right here. So one more to go. We have our execute image. So we'll call our execute bitmap. And let's just take this guy and convert him to execute. Execute. I can type, really. Okay, so that's all we need there. So let's go ahead and start adding these radio toolbars. And you'll notice that when I create the toolbar, all I need to do is say toolbar, which we created right up here with toolbar create toolbar.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to add a radial tool. And basically this allows us to have something that's selectable, kind of like a radio button, so that only one inside of a set is selected at all time. Right. Otherwise, we don't want to have to...
You don't want to make players and walls at the same time.
Exactly.
Come on.
So the first parameter that we need here is, of course, the ID. So we have toolbar wall, the text that we want associated with this, and what image we want displayed in it. And of course, we have our wall bitmap right here. So let's just declare wall bitmap. And the second one is the image that you want for the disabled image. We can just leave that as no, and then it automatically creates one for us. And this is the tooltip that we'll use. So we'll just use the exact same, well, pretty much exactly the same as what we had over here. It was supposed to be the same. Place walls for the tooltip. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this 4 times.
Yeah.
And the second one we have is our toolbar player. And we want to place player. And this is going to be player bitmap. And for the second one here, we're going to create the enemy, the toolbar for the enemy. So place enemy. And just come over to here. This is really where we need elevator music so that people can actually find this part entertaining.
Doing, 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 doing.
You're doing a great job, Buzz.
Doing, doing, doing.
So we can call this erase items. This is for the eraser. And let's see, let's make sure this is right. So eraser bitmap. Now let's go ahead and add a separator.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much exactly the same. We just say add separator.
So you can have them on toolbars just like you can on menus.
That's right. And because of this add separator, these are within a section for add radio tools. So only one of these will be selected at any time. If we had another set of radio tools, one of those 3 would be selected at all times. So that's kind of cool. Now let's go ahead and start adding regular toolbar buttons that can be just clicked as commands, if you will. So we just say add tool. And the first one's going to be the previous level. And we'll just give it a text of previous level. We're going to use our arrow left bitmap and our previous. The tooltip is going to be previous level, just like a second ago. And let's just print this out 3 times. And this one's going to be
the next level.
The next level. This one's going to be next level. This right here is going to be next level.
And finally, test level. Oh yeah, after adjusting that.
And so toolbar test level. Almost there, guys. So what do I call this? Execute?
Execute bitmap.
Execute bitmap. And we'll just call this test level. So that's pretty much all we needed for that.
Yeah.
We're also going to, right at the beginning here, disable the previous and next toolbar buttons.
For sure.
Because we haven't created a package yet, they shouldn't be able to use those anyway.
Right.
So all we're going to do is say toolbar, enable tool, TLB, previous level. And we'll set that to false. In other words, we just want to disable that particular button. So TLB, next level. We'll set that to false. And then finally, after doing all of this, nothing's going to show up. Nothing's going to be seen on top of the viewport or in our user interface until we call toolbar realize. So it realizes or creates our toolbar. Well, with all of that typing, we should have a fairly decent working interface. So if everything went well, let's go ahead and compile this. I'd be very surprised if I didn't make any like spelling errors or something.
Wow.
Okay. That's pretty scary. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. So we have this. Actually, we should put another separator between these two guys.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
But otherwise, everything is working perfectly, and it looks good too. So, and exit still doesn't work as it shouldn't. So let's exit this, add the separator, and then put in the placeholders for our event handling.
Sounds good.
So let's take this add separator, put it right here. Recompile this just to make sure everything is happy. Now let's go start populating our event table. So things that we want to do, of course, we want to handle all the menu items. So the first one's going to be new package. This is a real workout.
And we'll call on new package,
which we need to declare in a second. So let's just go ahead and complete this first. So on new package. And let's start copying this a few times because we do have quite a few menu items. So on new level for this. And of course these are not going to be implemented yet, but by the end of it, everything will be implemented. So
load. Yeah, again, right now we're just setting up kind of a skeleton.
Right. It's convenient to have this in place at the very beginning, just so you know that at some point we're going to have to put code inside of there.
Right.
So on about, and finally on exit. So on exit. Okay, so those are the menu items. We're also going to handle the paint events. Just go ahead and do this right now. So let's go to EVT. Actually, you know what? I've decided just now, right on the fly, that we're going to wait for those events as well. But we just have our menu items, and let's also put in the skeleton for our toolbar event handling.
Okay.
Just as, because these are kind of the main things for our UI. Right. The painting and events, those should be done in a graphic session. So this will work well. So we have our event tool range. This basically says handle all the events for IDs within a specific range. So if we switch over to here, you'll notice that we want to handle everything between previous level and test level, because these guys, all we need to do is test to see whether or not they're selected.
Which one is to determine what needs to be put down on the canvas.
Right, so we test that every time we place something down. Right. These guys are actual executed events, so we need to handle their click events. So we have from previous level to test level. So all we're going to say is TLB, the first one, previous level, to TLB, test level. And we're just going to call appFrame on toolbar clicked. And that's it.
That's it. So now we've got some prototyping to do.
Yep. So let's go over to our header file here and start creating all the different functions that we've just defined.
If you want to save some typing, you might could just go copy all that and
okie dokie.
Rework it.
Just to make you happy.
Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a good thought. So let's take this and let's just kind of clean this out a little bit. It will save a little bit of time. At the very least, people don't have to see me typing the entire time. So these are going to be a void on new package, and for this case, we're just going to create a WX command event. And let's do this. This should be a lot easier. And let's just take you. That was fairly simple.
Yep.
And finally, we have our void on toolbar clicked. And this, of course, is also a WX command event. And there we have it.
Very nice.
Finally, we just have to create the little skeletons for these guys. So all we need to do is copy all of these guys, go back over into the source file, go to the very bottom, paste them in here, make it look nice. And we have our app frame.
And copy and paste that all the way down.
Yes, indeed. Whoa. So, and just remove these guys here. Trying to make it as fast as possible. So just kind of pasting in empty bodies for these guys. And that's it. That's all there is to it.
Compiles nicely and executes. Look at that.
Wow, very impressive.
Yeah.
So if we run this, you'll notice that we do have the separator now, and these events are being handled, even though we're not doing anything.
Fantastic. And with that, that's really going to bring us to a close, unless there's anything else you can think of, Joe.
Nope, I think that's everything.
We've accomplished everything we set out to do. We now have a GUI for our level editor, and we're ready to start adding some functionality into it. So with that, that's going to wrap up this lesson here. Thanks a lot.